And welcome again to Saturday Morning Radio School. We have a very special presentation this week from Orb Beach, W6VI, about mesh. This is an area of ham that is still not one I have dug into deeply, so I've really been looking forward to this one. And it's just astonishing to me the level of sophistication that's available to us as hobbyists. Not to mention, with our style of blackouts that we have so common these days, still be able to, well, why don't I stop talking about it and turn it over to Orv? That'd make a lot more sense. Go ahead, Orv.
Thanks, Keith. We'll get right into this here. I have to share my screen, don't I?
Oops. Orv, I've accidentally muted you. There you go.
Okay.
If you could unmute.
I think I did. Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can get this slideshow going.
Mm-hmm. That's working perfectly.
Excellent. Thanks to CVARC for letting me teach, in quotes, something about mesh networking. And I'm going to focus on Ventura County, but all of the principles apply everywhere. So anyway, first thing I want to talk about is speeds. And by speeds, we're talking modulation rates, not throughput. You all know that your 100 megabit cable modem at home rarely gives you 100 megabits per second. So we're just talking how fast you can go from one point to another, not end to end. We're not talking throughput. So anyway, packet radio is 1200 baud. And in this case, 1 baud equals 1 bit per second. And in modern terms, that's 0.0012 megabits per second. It wasn't especially fast 30 years ago, and it hasn't gotten any faster. But it does get the traffic through, albeit slowly. Lately, people have started using VARA FM on at least 2 meters. And with the right radio and the right modem, you can do up to 20 kilobits per second. The mesh networking we're talking about here can do more than 100 megabits per second. And again, that's, not end to end, but when you start out at 100 megabits per second, you can get a lot more through end to end. Mm-hmm. We use stock wireless access points. There's no hacking on the hardware. Keith, could you mute your speaker, please? Thank you. Back in the early days, the bad old days, you had to hack on a Linksys WRT54G, and it was pretty ugly. Fortunately, we don't have to do that now, and makes the entry into mesh networking quite a bit easier. The AREDN software now supports 4 different brands and up to 70 different models across Ubiquiti, TP-Link, Mikrotik, and GL.iNet, and they all have similar products, but there's enough differentiation so you can find a suitable model for any application. The most popular brands are Ubiquiti and Mikrotik. These access points are loaded up with custom software, the AREDN software, and that converts them into ham radios, and they form a TCP/IP network, just like the internet, only over RF. So we call them nodes when they've got the AREDN software on them, and you have to kind of treat them like handy talkies. They're only typically about 600 milliwatts, low power, and they are limited to line of sight, like we're talking about before we started recording. So just like with a handy talkie, you almost always talk through a hilltop radio site. And unlike a handy talkie, if your node hears multiple hilltops, it will always choose the best route. So there's no point in using an omni antenna since it's going to send the data to one hilltop anyway. So we like using directional antennas, dishes or otherwise. So you got this awesome ham radio network, but it's just infrastructure like the internet. It doesn't do anything. It just lets you get to places and do things with services. A bunch of them are up here, repeater linking, voice, video, email, pretty much anything you can think of subject to the Part 97 ham radio regulations. And we'll go over a few of these. We've tried all of these around here in Ventura County. We're not currently running all of them, but all of them are run someplace on a mesh network someplace. Communications hubs. If you've ever used Slack at work, there are a couple of open source wannabes, Mattermost and Rocket Chat, and they're used throughout the network. We use Mattermost here in Ventura County. Lets you send text and pictures, unlike the old IRC network. And you have multiple channels. You can spin off a channel and talk privately to somebody if you want. They have web access, but they also have applications for pretty much any OS that somebody might have. So here's a screenshot of our local Mattermost channel. This is a couple years ago. Eric, KG6WXC from Port Hueneme, was out in the desert near Ridgecrest camping with his family the night of the Ridgecrest earthquake. So he ran over there and took a picture of the surface rupture. And although we don't have mesh network coverage there, there is wireless coverage. And we have two Mattermost instances, one on the internet and one on the mesh network, and they're linked together. So with the Mattermost app on his phone, he took a picture and posted this on the Mattermost instance running on the mesh network here in Ventura County. So it's pretty handy. There's a number of us who hang out on them pretty much 24/7. Voice over IP, it's not new anymore, but it's kind of new to ham radio. This picture is kind of old. It was about 5 years ago before we deployed anything. While you can run VoIP PBX software, telephone switch software on pretty much anything down to a Raspberry Pi now, Paul EBY wasn't real confident with his Linux skills when he wanted to deploy a PBX. So he bought this Grandstream PBX. It's their low-end PBX, but it'll support, I don't know, 64 simultaneous conversations. It's under $300. And here it is. You can see it in the red circle deployed in the rack on Sulphur Mountain. It's currently supporting about just under 30 extensions. A few of them are at like the county EMS, a couple of hospitals, police departments, and as we push mesh out to service groups like that, we'll also push a phone out. And you can use any VoIP phone, but we prefer in Ventura County the Grandstream brand because you can manage it better with the Grandstream PBX. You can see here that I missed a call and somebody left me a voicemail with flashing red light in the corner. I'm amazed how often my phone rings. So there's what they call collaboration servers. You've seen the gamers use them to coordinate among their team members. Same sort of stuff. TeamSpeak, Mumble, Teamtalk, there's if you look them up on Wikipedia, there's at least 24 of them out there. We chose Teamtalk because it's one of the few that isn't encrypted, and that way we bypass that whole encryption discussion. So anyway, it's voice and video chat, file sharing, desktop sharing. There's probably other features available. And Teamtalk has chat rooms like you'd expect. You can go off on one-on-one chat, voice, data, or video. And you can set up as many channels as necessary, and I'll show that. You can use the speaker and microphone built into your laptop, or you can use a USB headset like I am now. It's full duplex conversations. You can't time out a Teamtalk channel. As a matter of fact, you can interrupt the person on the other end. You don't have to wait till they time out the repeater. And by the way, if you have 3 or 4 channels with 3 or 4 conversations going on, they can all be simultaneous. And it's high quality audio. The codecs all along the line will run as high a quality audio as they can based on the throughput. This is not your 300 to 3000 hertz communications grade audio that your father's repeater ran. We have a Wednesday night net, and during the net, I'll close the doors to the office, put on my headset, put it on Vox, and put my feet up on the table and just have a conversation. It's very, very natural. You can use Vox, like I mentioned, set up a key on your keyboard for push to talk, or you can even nail up an open mic from end to end, like on a separate channel. We've never done that, but I can see instances where that might happen if you have some sort of emergency going on where you need a nailed up line between I don't know, a fire camp and someplace else, fire headquarters. Put a couple laptops in a room that's relatively quiet, nail up the connection, and somebody can come in and say, hey, I need to talk to Bob. And somebody on the other end says, hang on, I'll go get him. Very, very natural. So anyway, here's a screenshot of one of our weekly nets a while ago. You can see the members logged in on the left. When you're talking, the background of your call sign or your name in there goes green, and when you release push to talk, it goes yellow. So you can see that Dave KM6FQ was the last to talk. And you can see along the top, you've got tabs for chat, video, desktop, and file storage. And here was another net a little bit later. Let's see. The three on the left column, let's see, is me, K1GGS, and WA6GNB. Up at the top in the middle is Jim from Glendora, and the middle is Eric from Port Hueneme. At the bottom, that's Dale from Cathedral City out near Palm Springs. In the upper right is Kevin, AJ7C from Culver City. So it gets around quite a bit. We don't normally run video. It doesn't add a lot to a conversation, but it's handy once in a while. And we have everyone fire up their cameras once in a while to stress test the system. During this test, I was monitoring the server and the network. Each one of those video streams is about 100 kilobits. They're 640 by 480 or 320 by 240, maybe 5 or 10 frames per second. And anyway, the server, which is a Raspberry Pi 3, was doing about 10% CPU and about 10% network, so no sweat. One more thing, off on the left, you can see aux channel 1 and aux channel 2. They can be named whatever you want. And if you wanted a private conversation with someone, you could just, you and the person you wanted to talk to could double click on a channel and you'd be transferred over there and you could talk independently of the main channel. When you're done talking, you can double click up at the top and return to the main channel. And we, at every site that has, that's, you know, for police and fire and whatever, if we have a ham network presence there, we will equip the laptop there with a Teamtalk client and an account so they can participate. So this is what really kicked it off. In 2016, Paul and I and a few others were busily upgrading the network across Ventura County after they'd done a significant upgrade to the AREDN software. And we were jumping from mountaintop to mountaintop, linking them together. And on Sulphur Mountain, Paul happened to throw up an old junker bullet camera, you know, fixed focus, fixed direction. Sometime in late 2016, late 2017, that was about September, Ben, AI6YR, sent me a link to an article on how to stream cameras to YouTube. And he said, see if you can figure this out. Maybe we'll use it eventually. Well, I had a test camera focused on my driveway, and I figured it out, and I showed him the YouTube stream, and he thought that was cool, and I filed it away for future use. Well, 6 weeks later, Ben pinged me about 6 o'clock at night and said, hey, we got a fire going up near Santa Paula. Don't you have a camera up there? Well, I did have a camera on Sulphur Mountain, different brand, a different model, a different operating system than I had tested at home. But I did manage to get it running in about a half an hour. And this is what we saw. We managed to stream video for about 2 hours until we lost Edison power at an intermediate point. Though, as you remember, the winds were howling that day and there was no backup power at that site at that time. After the YouTube stream went dark, the fire came down across the hill. You can see the light there at the owner's driveway gate. It burned across there, burned right to left about, I don't know, less than 100 yards in front of the tower, proceeded west, and well, we know what it did to Ventura. We learned some valuable lessons. Since then, we've upgraded the sites we can to pan tilt zoom cameras, batteries everywhere, and some sites have generators, some sites have solar backup above that. We're trying to harden it as much as we can. A few days after this, I got an email from a fire inspector at the Ventura County Fire Department asking for the URL of the YouTube recording of this. And we didn't hear back directly, but we did hear indirectly. They found it useful because it was the first existent video of the fire. And the video was actually mentioned the following June when the County Board of Directors declared June Ham Radio Month. What do I want to say about that? I guess that's all about that. So we did, over the following year, we did a bunch of those upgrades I mentioned, hardening the sites and stuff. And the next year, we got the Woolsey fire. Started in Woolsey Canyon, which is about 2 screens off to the left of your screen. And within, an hour or so, it was burning east to west across the Santa Susana Mountains. This pan tilt zoom camera happens to be on the north edge of Simi Valley. And I was able to stream this for 36 hours till it turned south and went through TO and then to Malibu. And we all know what damage it did there. Ben, AI6YR, has a very large Twitter following because he posts a lot of emergency communications, disaster communications, and he posted the YouTube URL of this to his Twitter stream. And by the time, I don't know, I think we had a peak of, I don't know, 200 or 300 people watching this. So the video turns out to be really important. And it's not the big ones either. This was on the 118 freeway in the Santa Susana Pass, and happened to catch it. The camera's looking right down the hill at it. It's not even a mile away. If you look closely down at the lower center, you can see the strike team that a previous helicopter dropped. So I streamed this for, I don't know, an hour or so. But it's more than just video. Winlink is a global messaging system. I have email there, but I guess it's messaging. It's originally designed for boaters, for HF. It can use all of these, I'll call them VHF protocols. They tend to be, lower speed from 1200 to up to, like I said, 20 kilobits. And on HF, ALE's automatic link establishment, that was a commercial radio, may still be viable, really expensive frequency agile radio. And all of the Pactors, I believe Pactor 4 is illegal in the US, and VARA HF, we mentioned that before, that can do about 5 to 6 kilobits per second. A couple of years ago, the Winlink team added support for amateur radio IP networks like AREDN, as you'd expect, substantially faster. And you don't have to digipede because the network knows how to get the traffic to the far end. And it has a large set of standardized messaging templates, ICS. You can customize them. We have a local ACS check-in form. There's lots of forms. I grabbed this off the Winlink site. It hasn't been updated in a while, so I kind of hacked it up and patched it. Winmore's obsolete. They're now using VARA on HF and RDOP, and they don't show the ham radio networking, but it goes here in this level here between your local station and what they call an RMS, a remote message server. And here's a Winlink email box. It looks like email, but composing and sending messages is a lot more complicated than email, depending on how you're going to send it, what mode. You have to tell it who you're going to send it to, unless it's going straight out to the internet. And Keith and I were just talking about this. Anytime you send a message, it shows a dialog screen like this. It shows the progress from start to finish. And as a test, I sent a 20 kilobyte attachment, which is the largest Winlink will let you send. And you can see down there that the total session time start to finish was 10 seconds, all done. So you can move a ton of traffic. And so Winlink and mesh networking are really made for each other. And I would really encourage anybody who's into message trafficking and Winlink to see if they can get on their local mesh network. And there's other stuff you can do too. This is a screenshot of my ham radio station, weather station. This is what is it? Altimeter 2100 from Pete Brothers. It's being displayed on a Raspberry Pi in my ham shack. Actually, I think now it's a Debian box, but anyway, it's open source software called WX. You can load it, and it supports 4 or 5 different type of operating systems and pretty much every type of weather sensor you could think of. So if you have a weather station, you can put it on the mesh network and also push it out to the internet if you want. Because it's open source, you can customize this screen as much as you want. And this is not a mesh network, but this guy went crazy. He obviously has nothing better to do, but this is his WX weather station. And it's not all about emergencies either. We've run a Scrabble server at times and played Scrabble. bzflag is a tank shoot 'em up game, and it runs fine on the mesh network. And once in a great while after the Wednesday night nets, we'll play a few hands of poker. It's a lot of fun. So what's around here? Eric, KG6WXC, wrote a network mapper, a network crawler. It crawls around the nodes, and there's a file each node keeps about itself: hardware, software, links, quality of links, location, and stuff like that. And he pulls all of that into a database. And if the node has the latitude and longitude installed, he can place it on a map. And this is a map of Southern California. The area encompassed, I mapped it out on Google Maps. The area encompassed by what you see there is about 11,000 square miles. And obviously it's not all covered by the network, but we're getting there. The orange dots are 5 gig, purple is 2 gig, blue is 3 gig, and you'll see some gray ones which have no RF associated with them. Those are little routers in the shack running AREDN software. There are about, last time I looked, about 410 nodes in the area you see. So it's kind of the big daddy area of ham networking for a couple of reasons. We have lots of very handy mountaintops, lots of which already have repeater sites on them. And the other is a couple of the AREDN developers live down in Southern California, Orange County in the area. And so we kind of got a head start. So here's Ventura County. We're actually covered pretty well. A list of sites I'll show you, and then we'll go over them in a little more detail. But we have lots of coverage if somebody wants to come up. We have a lot of areas that still aren't covered yet. It took us 40 years to get FM repeater coverage where it is now, and we've only been pushing out this network really for about the last 5 years. So what's out there for equipment? I'm not going to go across all 70 brands and models, but here's a few that are popular. It's available for 4 amateur bands. That's 900, 2.4, 3, and 5 gigahertz. But I'm going to focus on 5 gigahertz because that's predominantly what we use in Southern California. It's designed for outdoor use. They're weatherproof. Power over Ethernet, which means you don't have to run a separate data and power cable up the mast to the node. The hardware inside these boxes is amazing. It's amazing how much complexity and value you get for the money. And there are multiple input, multiple output. That means there's 2 transceivers in it. And in our case, one's vertically polarized and one's horizontally polarized. And then they send data simultaneously and combine those data streams at the other end. It's pretty slick. And most of them have built-in gain antennas. one for vertical polarization, one for horizontal polarization. And I mentioned the MIMO, and you've probably heard of 802.11 something or other. Well, 802.11n is far better than the old A, B, and G. It's been surpassed by the AC, but 802.11n is the sweet spot for the long haul we use for these devices. And that's why AREDN has settled on it. So a few caveats here. Be careful buying used equipment. AREDN is based on OpenWRT, which is open source wireless access point for your home router. And they're starting to bump up against a 32 megabyte limit of RAM. All the new stuff has far more than that, but some of the older ones don't. And if OpenWRT drops support from a device that only has 32 megs of RAM, AREDN can't develop any more for it. You might not be able to fit the new versions. Also, if it has a single end connector on it, don't buy it. It's not MIMO. It's at least half the performance of modern devices, and they don't mix well. It's kind of like water and oil. Fortunately, the AREDN website, ardenmesh.org, has a list of devices that they still support, but they don't recommend for new purchases. So here's the nanostations by Ubiquiti. They're fine little devices. I don't know, 14 dBi gain, 45 degree beam width, 600 milliwatts. I have a little asterisk there about not recommending the 5 gigahertz. It works fine, and I'll talk about why if you're going to buy something new, maybe not that. Here's what a lot of people buy. Used to be all Ubiquiti. These are their power beams for 5 gigahertz in the 300 millimeter, 400 millimeter, and the 620 scare your neighbor size. Over the last 3 or 4 years, Mikrotik has become supported, and they've become very popular for a couple of reasons. They're very lightweight, very good for portable use, and because they have a mesh screen in the back, they have a lower wind load. So if you get a lot of wind, or if you're in some place that gets a lot of icing, you might not want to. If you have a lot of wind, the Mikrotik is what you want, but if you get a lot of icing, maybe not. So after somebody buys their node, they almost immediately buy this. This is the Mikrotik HAP AC Lite. It's a little 5-port router, and in this case, it goes in your shack, and you put AREDN software on it, and it is just so useful. The problem with the AREDN software is that it uses all of the 10.0.0.0 network, expects it to be on its own. It doesn't mix well with the 192.168. Whatever home network your stuff has. So up until we had this, you had to jump through hoops to be able to use only one computer in your shack. Normally it would be one for mesh and one for everything else, but now that we have the Mikrotik AC Lite, you can combine the two. Port 5 there goes up to the node outside, and the WAN 1 goes to your home network, and anything on 2, 3, or 4, like your computer, can talk to both networks. It's very, very handy. Has a bunch of other features too, but we won't go into that right now. So more pictures. Here's a few typical home setups. Here's K1GGS with 2 nanostations. So why would he do that? Well, one's 2 gig and one's 5, and they're pointing up at the local access point in West Simi Valley, and it has 2 gig and 5 gig. So if one of those goes down, he maintains connection. He's got redundancy. We try and do this at any EOC or hospital where we have dual access, or in some cases, you can hit 2 sites and you can set it up to use one over the other. Here's another one. This is Richard, KM6PTE in Sun Valley. I didn't mention it, but the nanostation at the top here has 2 Ethernet jacks. You can run your main cable up the cable and into the main jack on the nanostation, run another cable out of the secondary, in this case it goes to a Mikrotik. So you feed power and data up to the nanostation, then it feeds them both back out onto the Mikrotik through the secondary port. Keeps you from having to run multiple cables up a mast. And this is really handy for portable. You could set up the Mikrotik to connect to your nearest hilltop, and leave the nanostation as a part 15 wireless and let everybody with their cell phones connect to it, and then they could dial out on the ham PBX with their cell phone. And you don't need a fancy setup. This is a guy in the Bay Area sent me this, and he's about 2.5 miles away, something like that, line of sight. And the thing is dual polarized, so it doesn't care that it's laying on its side. So apparently it works quite well for him. Another guy sent this to me. I think he's in Oakland or maybe Berkeley. And you can see along the railing there, you can see the dish antenna. And over here, you can see a sector antenna, which I'll talk about in a bit. And I think this may be a PTZ camera, not sure. And if you're unfortunate enough to be in an HOA restricted area, Mikrotik makes this little LDF5. It's only 9 dBi gain. But if you put it at the feed point of an old satellite dish, you can put it up and point it at your nearest hilltop. Nobody will ever notice that it's not pointing at a synchronous satellite. So some local area sites. This is the Camarillo Hill site run by W6VI. It's in addition to having FM repeaters, it's a relay site for the microwave mesh network. Solar powered, auxiliary AC power coming up the hill. This is the Sulphur Mountain site. Lots of repeaters, lots of networking gear, lots of tower. That's me up there changing out a camera. I think my climbing days are over. This is the Reeves Road site. This is the very eastern end of Ojai Valley. This takes a feed from the main backbone and distributes it through the eastern half of the Ojai Valley. They've also recently linked to a site called Black Mountain, which is on the south central edge of the Ojai Valley, and that's provided additional coverage on the western end of Ojai Valley. This is the current South Mountain site. The big tower on the right side is commercial, obviously, and the tower on the left is the ham tower at 6 meters and a DMR repeater, and all the dishes and stuff for the ham radio mesh network. I don't have a picture of it, but you may have heard Paul or somebody mention that we have a new South Mountain site. This particular site here is on the western end of the ridge that's South Mountain. The other site is about 1.1 miles east-northeast of here on the other end of the site of the ridge, and we will eventually establish some mesh networking up there. This is the western Simi Valley site. It's on Mellow Lane. K6ERN, the SMRA, runs 2 repeaters here, UHF and VHF, but you can see the sector antenna for 5 gigs here, and we actually have an Omni here for 2 gigs. Normally we don't use Omnis, but it was given to us, so we use it. Here's the PVARC site on Chatsworth Peak. Excuse me. On the container, you can see the 4-pole antenna from a UHF repeater, and the Yagi is the 420 link going to the rest of the PVARC repeater sites. All the stuff on the left side of that yellow container is county stuff. On the tower, we've got 2 gig access point for Eastern Simi Valley and a 5 gig access point. The little dish is a test network. There's also a 2 gig wireless access point. The big dish is our link west into the county, the backbone. You can't see it, but there's a set of stairs behind that big rock behind the tower, and buried underneath it is a pair of Ethernet cables going up the hill to the main ham radio site up there. Rabbit radios up there and some other stuff. But on a pole outside is another dish that points. Oops, I missed it. Let me see, hang on. Oh, well, we'll skip that. I guess I didn't show it. Anyway, just a quick look. This isn't very exciting. When you log into your node, this is what you see. This is how you manage it. And it's got a button there for mesh status. And when you click on it, this is what you see. Again, not very exciting. Everything that's underlined is a URL. It's a link. You can click on it and go someplace. And there's two columns, the right column and the left column. And the right column is all your local neighbors. If you have down at the bottom a local RF neighbor, you can see, oh, here, WB2YXY-VC-5G. That's Doug's 5G radio. And this printout you see is coming from the Chatsworth Peak repeater looking down at these guys. So it's reporting Doug has 74% link quality coming up, and it's telling him it's 98% coming back down. And the ones up at the top that say DTD, device to device, those are ones that are linked together with, well, they're back to back, either wired or RF. On the left side, similar to digipeating, these are devices that are more than one hop away. The ETX is the link quality, the lower the better, actually. It's the number of, call it the number of hops. That's not what it is, but it's close enough. So lower is better. So how do you know if two sites can see each other? They have line of sight calculators. Heywhatsthat.com is easy to use. Ubiquiti has airlink.ui.com. Both of those are fine. Radio Fresnel works fine. It's a little more complicated. Where do you get info? AREDNmesh.org. That's the AREDN website. List of supported hardware, all the software downloads. And by the way, they have their production releases, and they have what they call nightly builds. When someone submits a patch to the code and it's accepted and compiled, it goes into a nightly build that you can download and run. And they're very small, incremental, and a lot of people routinely grab the nightly builds just to stay current. There's a whole list of how-tos, FAQs. Oh, and Steve, AB7PA, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, took it upon himself to collect all the documentation and solicit more and put it all in one handy place. Even if you're just mildly interested in this, you should browse through the documentation. It's very well organized. AREDNmesh.org has some forums. There's one related to deployment, bug reports, development, and there are a bunch of regional ones by state and then subdivided into regions within a state. There's a Facebook group that's fairly active. It has more than 1,500 members. I maintain mailing lists for Southern California and for Ventura County. And if you're interested, you can sign up for those. They're not high traffic at all. Excuse me. And we'll look at the network map. Eric maintains that network map. In addition, on the mesh, he mirrors it out onto the internet at mapping.kg6wxc.net. And it updates about every hour. Oh, and I maintain a beginner's guide PDF. I believe there's a version of it on groups.io on at least the ACS group, maybe also CVARC, I don't know. If you can't find it under files on one of those groups.io pages, let me know and I'll be happy to send it along. So this site is up on pvarc.club. I maintain it. It shows all the active sites in Ventura County. You can sort it by node ID, location, latitude, longitude, bandwidth, it's sortable. Okay, that's the formal presentation, but I want to show you guys something. Let me see here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, this is that's Paul calling me on my bat phone, the VoIP mesh phone. Hey, Paul, I'm giving a presentation. Can I call you back? Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Sorry. That was a good demo. So this is a mesh, this is a map, and I've got all of our sites plotted in a table, and the table knows what direction they radiate in. So for instance, let's start with say Ojai. Here's the Reeves Road. That's the coverage there. and we'll add in Black Mountain. And so you can see they've got a fairly good amount of coverage. If we want to cover Ventura, let's see how Sulphur Mountain does. Fairly well. Let me turn that one off. Here's South Mountain West, does a pretty good job. Now remember, this is coverage down to ground level, assuming there's no trees and no buildings in the way. You need to do a line of sight from your QTH if you want to see if you can get connected. And if you can't, fear not. The little AREDN, the Mikrotik HAP AC Lite has a capability of tunneling through the internet and connecting you to another a tunnel server on the mesh network. And we do run one in the county, and it's got a few spots, and I have a few in mind too, available. Anyway, that's South Mountain West. I talked about the new South Mountain nodes. When we get them up, this will be the coverage for the north facing one, and we're going to replicate southeast here. As far as the rest of the county, let me go over to Simi Valley. I've got it covered like a blanket. There's west. Well, not quite like a blanket, but you get the idea. There's the north facing one. And there's the south facing one and the west facing one. The Conejo Valley is pretty well covered, with a notable exception. This is the Rasno Peak radio. Because of restrictions up there, we're not able to get the antenna as high as we can. So it's down low, and it happens to be set back from the lip of the plateau up there, the mesa. So a lot of Newberry Park is shielded. We've been looking at various ways to get around that, and there are a few plans in place, but nothing yet. What else? Black Mountain, well, the rest of these are LA County. We don't care about the, Camarillo Hills does a pretty good job of covering the Camarillo Plain. So between this, South Mountain and Sulphur Mountain, all of the Oxnard Plain is covered pretty well. So let me try something else here. Let's see if this works. There we go. Oh, and it crashed. This is the Linux client for Teamtalk, and it's flaky. It'll probably crash. You can see Jim and Glendora is there, and it it crashes when I move it. Stand by. Hey Jim, you copy? Nope. Guess we won't do it. Okay, I told him never mind. Okay. I guess we can do a Q&A now if anybody has any questions. Stuff's a lot of fun. It's not expensive to get into. Maybe the cost of 3 Baofeng handy talkies. Any questions?
And if anybody does have a question, just unmute yourself and go.
I have a question.
Go for it.
All right. Thanks for going over this and giving a lot of good information, try and get us interested and go over this. My question is, as a technician class license, what are my capabilities of using these frequencies at these modes?
No limits.
No limits. Okay.
Nope.
And is there, and then for the devices, these Mikrotik devices and the Ubiquiti devices, you pretty much just use them as is. As far as the RF side, there's no need for any sort of amplifiers or anything, or is it's all power limited? Is there, I don't know, any comments on like range or anything with these things?
Yeah, I can talk about that. There's no hardware hacking, no ancillary add-on stuff. Pretty much everything I talked about is all you need to get started. As far as range, Obviously, first prerequisite is line of sight. I recently did an audit of all of the, actually, I don't know if you know or not, the FCC is threatening to hose up 5 gigahertz for us. AREDN has employed a legal firm to first put in a comment to the NPRM, and then if that fails, they'll take them to court. And I had a small part in that, contributing some local information. And Eric was kind enough to do an SQL export of some data I needed out of the database. And with it, he was able to calculate path lengths everywhere from 0.01 miles, where you have 2 links in your shack. And I always thought the longest link we had was 45 miles down in San Diego County. But it turns out the longest one we have in Southern California is 61 miles.
Wow.
Now, that's not gear you'd want to run at home, because that's a big honking dish on each end, but it tells you what this stuff can do.
Yeah.
A bunch of us guys here in Ventura County are on it, and here to Chatsworth Peak is 6 miles, a line of sight, and we get tremendously good signal to noise ratios, so we need to expand the network a little bit more, but in Ventura County, we have pretty good coverage because of all of those very tall towers we call mountains. So you got to get the outside node. You'll need outdoor Ethernet cable for it, because UV is not kind to normal cable.
Yeah,
and really, if you're going to get into this, above all else, buy the Mikrotik app, the little router. It is really useful. It has all sorts of features.
Okay. Yeah, sounds pretty good. I used to work for the company Xeris in Newbury Park. It was a big Wi-Fi company. So this looks right exactly like all that stuff. So OpenWRT and all that. I've used that in a couple Wi-Fi based toys and stuff too. So it looks pretty cool.
If you like ham radio and you like computers, this is a great combination.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Okay, awesome.
The number of network cables quadruples in your shack once you get into this stuff. I had to build a separate shelf behind my ham shack for the HAP, and a dumb switch to expand it because 3 ports wasn't enough. Plus there's 2 Raspberry Pis, a Debian server. Oh, I don't know what all else. So, but it grows gradually, and it's just like ham radio.
And I have a question, Orv. I live in Casa Conejo, which is one of those marginal areas. But looking at one of the maps, it looks like I ought to be able to see RASNOM. Is there a way to check that before investing in the hardware and the installation effort?
Are you north of the 101?
No, I'm a couple of 100 feet south of it, around Wendy.
You may be SOL. Yeah. Ping me and I'll show you. Yeah, that's that shaded area. We've been trying to get the node on RASNO up onto the high pole, and the politics up there are deep.
Sure. Now, if I can see it with a pair of binoculars, that would be a good sign, I assume.
If you can see the little building that's back behind the lip of the ridge on the very far left, yeah.
Okay.
I'll use Hey What's That. Put your heywhatsthat.com. All you have to do is put in your location, either address or latitude, longitude, and the height you'd have your node above the ground, and it'll give you the coverage. And then you zoom in on RASNO Peak, and I can give you the coordinates of the thing exactly, but you'll see that it's probably shaded. But buy the HAP AC Lite, and we'll get you on the network with an internet to start with. I've been negotiating with Terry, AG6G, I don't know. He lives there and he has a friend who lives up just below, I think it's just below Grissom, but he has a straight shot to Rasno, and he overlooks a lot of South Canal Valley, trying to get sort of a repeater node up there as a workaround. But the guy's afraid of, 5G radiation. So you have to work through.
If I could hit Rasno and Keith could hit my site, then somehow I could put in like a repeater or something to make a node instead of just a point to, what does it take to have multiple inputs going up to Rasno or something, from my side?
Nothing. The AREDN software has built-in route discovery software and builds up route tables. It'll find it.
Okay. So would it help to have like an antenna so I could get better coverage, or an antenna pointing in a different direction or something?
Well, you have to make sure that the antenna you put up covers all the sites you want to hit. The small ones have a 45-degree beam width.
Okay.
The dishes are down around 10-degree.
Okay.
If you need something up big, stronger, you need a sector antenna and a rocket, and that's about double the cost.
Okay.
But it's not horribly expensive. I mean, look at what we spend on ham radio.
Yeah, I have a straight shot to Rasno, so if I had and I'm not too far away from it, it seems to be a couple miles away. So maybe just going with I'll start by just getting something going, and then maybe try putting a wide angle on it and see how much extra coverage I can get to some of the other people or something.
How much time do we have, Keith? We'll walk through it.
As much as you like.
Okay, let me, oops, I'm going to share my screen. Again. Okay, let's go to, hey, what's that? We'll walk through. Let me see. Let's do a new panorama here. Who was last talking? Jim? No.
Yeah, it was James.
What's your address, James?
James, I think you're muted, but remember, we're also going to be on YouTube for this specific address.
Oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. So should we not do this?
I think we can. I'm going to get an address of a business that's very close to me, and we'll just use that. So give me just a moment for that.
That'll work.
Or have him send you his address on chat.
Yeah, well, I can try that. What city? I could actually look it up, but it's on the YouTube.
In Newbury Park, why don't we use 722 Wendy?
We can do that. Well, here, I've got his now. Let's assume he's going to put an antenna up 20 feet. You got to wait for a little commercial while it calculates it. Okay, let's see here. You can see the mark here, where the location is. I always have trouble locating these. I never can find Rasno.
Rasno's just above your frame there. Where that red blob is in the Hope Nature Preserve, it's to the left of Hope.
Got it. There we go. Okay. Here's the ridge you see. And we are in this building right here. And you can see up here in the path parameter, it's just below the lip. And if you go down here, it says compute line of sight. It says need viewer 1,823 feet above ground level. That would be you, or the target 18 feet, and it's about 12 feet. It might work. Buy more gain than you think you need. So what was that location you had?
722 Wendy Drive.
Oh, well, tell you what, why don't I just do Rasno Peak and we can tell whether it, please stand by.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull up my list of locations.
But if we do ground level at that address, we're pretty much where my mast is anyway.
Okay. Well, we'll look back at that. RASNOW. Okay. Here is latitude.
Oh, I don't know. I know the address.
No, I'm doing Rasno.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay.
This site's pretty easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your address?
722 Wendy. It's not within the red zone there.
Yeah.
Nowhere near it.
Yeah, this whole area is shaded because the antenna is so low. On the other hand,
right. Okay. Now, what about Ari's location that you said has an internet tunnel, right?
Yes, and he sees Rasno. He will. Let me think. He has a tunnel. His location is up right about here on Old Canal Road, and he's up on top of the building.
Yeah. Although if he can see Rasno, as long as I can see him, then we're good.
Should
right?
be. Do some calculations, see what you come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
Yeah, he's definitely line of sight for me.
Okay. Hope I didn't bore you guys to death. It's fun stuff.
You were going to talk about sector antennas.
Okay.
They're just bigger.
Yes, actually, yes and no. Let me see if I can pull up a picture. I think I showed one, but ham photos. Here, might as well share my screen again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ham photos, site photos, Chatsworth Peak, and yeah, these funny looking bread loaf things are sector antennas. They're called that because they're designed to irradiate a certain number of degrees in the compass sector, or compass.
Mm-hmm.
Typically 120 degrees. You can buy 90 and 120 degrees from Ubiquiti. You can buy 60 and 180 degrees from other parties. The 5 gig sector here on the side of the tower is actually a 90 degree because the east end of Simi Valley narrows quite a bit, and anything wider than 90, actually wider than 45, you're just irradiating rocks. So I decided to focus it down a little bit more. You can't see it on this picture, but on the back of the sector is what they call a rocket. It's a Ubiquiti rocket for 5 gigs, and there's a couple of SMA connectors on it, the couple to another pair on the back of the antenna. So inside that sector antenna, there's a 120-degree beam width vertically polarized antenna and a 120-degree horizontally polarized antenna. And by the way, that 120 degrees is horizontal polarization. The vertical polarization for these things, excuse me, vertical beam width for these things is quite narrow, under 15 degrees, I think. So you have to be kind of careful with your down tilt. It's less serious at home, but sometimes if you're quite close to a site, you may have to dial in a degree or two of up tilt.
What's the sector antenna on South Mountain Southeast? Do you happen to know the sector coverage on that? That's about the only thing I can see from my place.
Oh, they're all 120 degrees. Let me see, where were we? I had a picture. Let's see. Oh, seriously? Okay, so you wanted to know about the current South Mountain?
Yeah, in the southeast sector, what is its coverage zone?
Where are you?
I'm in Thousand Oaks in the Valley of Death, just north of St. Patrick's Hill.
I don't know where that is.
Jan's Road.
I know where that is.
Yeah, well, you go north of Jan's Road, there's a little hill there, and you go down the hill and it's on Marview.
Am I getting warm?
Yeah. Okay, where are we? Jan's Marketplace. Oh, shoot. Well, I'm seeing, just my luck, I'm going to be in that little white spot right there in the middle off of Herbs Road.
Well,
I don't know, it looks like it might see it. That actually looks okay. I'm looking at red, right?
Yeah, pink, yeah.
Look, pink, yeah.
Oh, Herbs over here.
Yeah.
Oh, Herbs and Jans. Okay.
Herbs north of Jan's.
Okay. Well,
you see that little
little white spot there?
Yeah, I might be in there.
Well, the guy we're talking about negotiating a relay site is right up here. He's east of Herbs. He's way high up on a hill, and it sees all the way across the valley. So if and when that comes up, you'll probably be able to see that.
Yeah, I tried about 1.5 years ago, and I could not see anything. And somebody drew me a map, and like I said, there's this little white valley of no coverage that I happen to live in.
Well, you can, if you want to get on the network, start out buying the little HAP router and get it loaded up and get tunneled in so you can get used to it.
Yeah, I've got the HAP router and I've got the Nanostation.
Okay.
I sort of gave up on it because I couldn't get to anything.
Drop me a note and we'll get you a tunnel set up.
Okay. The new South Mountain may actually work. I'll have to give it a try.
Yeah, that would be, well, it's not set up yet, but this
South
is the
Mountain
coverage.
Southeast.
This is the coverage of the new node. If Paul points it in the direction he told me, that looks about the same. They're only a mile apart.
Yeah, well, that looks. No, I'm actually, yeah, I see where, no, I'm in the pink. If that ever gets set up, any idea when that's gonna happen or?
Well, the goal was before field day, but it looks like it's going to slip a couple weeks.
Yeah, do you guys do anything for field day? Just, show up and demonstrate? I mean, I know it doesn't count for points.
It counts for points if it's point to point. And a few years ago, we actually did that. I put a dish up at the very top of my tower, and I was able to work point to point to the Reagan Library, and they got a couple points for that. It was like pulling teeth, though. Let's see. What's
I
else?
assume we could somehow point one up to the backside or whatever of Rasino Peak. I don't know if they would cover it from the field day site, which is down in Hidden Valley.
Oh, that's a great question. Let's see here.
Yeah, I think the angle's wrong.
Well, here's
I
Rasino.
don't believe from Dickens Patch that we'll have line of sight to that shack.
Yeah, it might be kind of hidden or whatever. Hidden because it's forward on the other side. Yeah.
That's what they call it, Hidden Valley, right?
Yeah, I can see on the map already that Dickens Patch is not lit up in pink there.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah.
It's just to the left of the lake there, where it said Potrero Road. That little pan a little further right. If we find Lake Sherwood,
Yeah, we have.
there we go. Where it says West Potrero Road, that's actually the field day site right there.
Not quite. Well, remember, the Rasino Peak node points north. It doesn't radiate to the south. It's not omni.
Yeah.
See, the problem with omni antennas, there's a couple problems with them. You get into the old packet hidden terminal problem. You want to minimize the number of minimize the amount of traffic on one channel so you don't collide with a hidden terminal. On packet, we're all on one channel. If I needed to cover more than 120 degrees from a mountaintop, you put two nodes up there, 220s, and you give them a little overlap, and you put them on different channels and you tie them together with an Ethernet cable at the base of the Ethernet switch down at the base of the tower. That way they can talk to each other and not collide if they were talking to an omni. It runs the cost up, but it keeps performance way up. And very rarely do you need more than, I don't know if we ever even have any two overlapping omnis anywhere in Ventura County. Because of our hilltops and our valleys, typically you point the sector in one direction, there's nothing but mountains in the other direction, the opposite direction.
How do you choose the channel?
You ask your mesh channel coordinator for Ventura County. That would be me.
It's not automatic or whatever, it doesn't scan or.
No, the AREDN coder gurus think someday that will come to pass, but we're a long ways off from that.
Okay.
We're going to want to talk to Rasino, so you just use the channel that Rasino's on.
Assuming you can hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a client.
Well, it's pretty much peer-to-peer. They all use the same routing software. There's no difference. If you're running a nanostation and another guy's running a nanostation and you're relaying through him, it's the same code. It doesn't care. At one point, due to over-enthusiastic tunneling, we got up to 700 nodes on the network, and it got kind of unstable. So we had a little come to Jesus meeting with some of the long haul. See, the problem is you got a long haul tunnel, and then he does a long haul tunnel someplace else, and he does a long haul tunnel someplace else, who does a long haul tunnel back to you, and presto, you've got this huge routing loop, and it causes network instability. But we chopped off not many, 3 or 4 of them, and it's been fine ever since. It sits around 400 nodes. And emergencies tend to be local, you know, and if we lost the San Fernando Valley, pretty much who cares? You know, we need just local communications. If we need to get out, there's always HF Winlink or something like that, which you can hit from the mesh network if you're set up for it. It's good for local stuff. Any other questions? My email address is available. And if you want to sign up for the mailing lists, it's on groups.io. Oh, well, you can just ask me, or you can find it on groups.io, search for SoCal mesh users or something like that, or I can send them out. I have one for Ventura County too, and I actually have one for Simi Valley for all 6 of us. And I could set up one for Newberry Park or stuff for this. They're actually pretty specific.
And if anybody watching this on YouTube needs that information, a good way to get in touch with any of us would be through W6KME, my call sign, at cvarc.org.
Just one more.
I will direct traffic that way.
Just one more thing. Because of the pandemic, AREDN had started to hold annual conferences, I think in 2017 or 2018. We met at, I think, USC, and there are 20 or 30 people. Well, last year, because of the pandemic, we decided to do it via Zoom. We had 5 or 6 presentations, and we had 265 people attend. So it was pretty successful, and we're going to do it again this fall. Additionally, the Southern California Linux Expo is every year. And for the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a ham radio and Linux presentation, and there have been at least a couple presentations on the AREDN software and how to use it, stuff like that. And that will be in March. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually got 3 or 4 or maybe a half a dozen new hams out of those seminars because they were strictly interested in ham radio networking. And additionally, before the pandemic, the San Francisco has a pretty significant network that didn't exist in early 2019. I gave a presentation at Pacificon in fall of 2019, and I got mugged in the hallway after the presentation by a bunch of guys, and since then their activity has exploded, and they're talking about talking Pacificon into having a strictly ham mesh networking speaker track if they can get enough people to talk. So the interest is definitely growing. I'm done.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, thanks, Orv. I'm all excited again about getting another project in ham radio going here. Because that's exactly what I needed, right? But there's never too many. So thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can just sort of chat freely as long as we like.